Good afternoon and welcome to ElectroBIM training. This is David Robison. In this training, we are going to be looking at circuit descriptions in ElectroBIM. So ElectroBIM is our add-in for electrical design in Revit. And there are two ways that you can do circuit descriptions with our software. You can choose to have Revit control the circuit descriptions if you want to. Revit has functionality for that. It has their paradigm for dealing with circuit descriptions. It's kind of based on the circuit having a description itself that's based upon what's connected, but it's really a circuit value. Or you can override that and use the ElectroBIM circuit descriptions. We have a different paradigm for how we think about these descriptions. They're more based upon what's connected to the circuit. So the circuit description is constantly updating based upon what you've connected to it. We have our project here. The first thing you want to do for circuit descriptions is check what your setting is in your project. If we go to project options, under circuit descriptions, we have the circuit description method. By default, it's going to be set to use Revit circuit descriptions because if you're coming to our software, you previously were using Revit circuit descriptions, you can continue to use those. Otherwise, we start changing them and people don't like it when we do that. However, you can switch this to use the ElectroBIM circuit descriptions. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. If you switch from Revit to ElectroBIM, how does that actually work? So we'll switch this and leave it on using ElectroBIM circuit descriptions. Now, the description on the circuit is going to be set based upon a series of levels where we check the circuit descriptions to see what has the best information for the circuit description. I'm going to take a look at this family here. This is a cooling tower. If we run the Revit edit family, we then have in ElectroBIM our family edit command. So actually the first level is if you've done nothing with our software. If you just load up Revit, start working on families, don't touch any of the circuit description settings that we have. In that case, what's going to happen is in your family, you have your connector. The connector has a load classification. That's what we're going to use as the circuit description. And that matches what Revit does out of the box. So we'll match the description in the circuit to that load classification. So if you do nothing, that's what you're going to get. However, we have a number of places where we can set that with a little bit more control. So if we run our family edit, we then have this circuit description value here. And so this is, if you run family edit and you set the values for this family using ElectroBIM, this is one thing you're setting is the circuit description. So we can say, hey, this is a cooling tower. So everywhere this shows up, when it's connected to a circuit, we want to call this a cooling tower. So we can put that circuit description in here. We also can base that on a parameter. This is standard in our software. Anywhere where we have an input, we have the option to pull it from a parameter. So if you have a parameter that's setting the circuit description, some other value that's pulling in information, maybe it's a multiple values being pulled together, you can have that load into our software as the circuit description. In this case, we'll just use the standard input. When you make that change, you then need to update the family in the project. We'll go ahead and do that. And now if we run our circuit edit, if you select the device and run circuit edit, it'll show us the circuit that's connected to that device. The description is now going to be cooling tower. So we're pulling that circuit description from that family definition that we just did. So that's the first place we're going to check. That's kind of the base level. So you want to set the descriptions for most stuff in your families using our family edit. We then, for each individual device, can run the instance edit. And here we can change that circuit description. So by default, it's going to be set to the family default, that cooling tower value. We can also, again, base it on a specific parameter from the instance, or we can set the circuit description in the instance with a custom value. So we call this CT1. So you got a couple of them and we're going to label them each individually. And if you had like CT1 as a mark or something, we could pull this in from a parameter. So have the circuit description based upon that parameter. But we're going to type it in. So we set that at the instance level, and then we run circuit edit again. And you can see that now the description is pulling from that instance. So the instance overrides the family. Then in the circuit edit command itself, we have a couple different places where you can set this circuit description. So we have a prefix and a suffix. This is additional information that's specific to the circuit that is going to go on this circuit. So if we wanted to call this an existing, we could do existing. You do need to include a space so that it has a space before the next description. We can also do a suffix, something at the end. You can see that the description here is updating. It's also updating here. I expand this out so you can see the whole thing. So you have the option to keep the description as it is, but add additional information before or after the description. You can also override it completely with this description replacement. And anything you type in here, that is going to override everything else. It's going to override these prefixes and the suffixes. It overrides the instance, the family. That's what the description should be for that circuit. So those are the places that the software is looking at to set that circuit description. Those are the places where you can control that. So you really want to set it in the family to begin with. That's going to be most of your circuit descriptions. Override then at the instance level or the circuit level. These values do show up in the panel schedule. So if I go pull the panel schedule for that panel, that shows up here. You do not want to change the value here. If I change this to something else and just type it in Revit, the next time we go in and we do anything with our software, if we run a circuit edit, if we run a calculation, it's going to update it with that new value. And now it's going to reset it back to the override. So if you edit in the panel schedule like you did before using ElectroBIM, and if you're using our circuit descriptions, those will not stick. So you do not want to change it in the panel schedule if you're using our circuit descriptions. You want to use our other ways. That way, our software understands what you're trying to do with that circuit description. That is for branch circuit descriptions. We also have circuit descriptions for distribution equipment, panels, and transformers. Those are handled a little bit differently. By default, those circuit descriptions are going to be the panel names themselves. So if we pull up MDP1, we have all of these panels connected. The circuit descriptions are the panels that are connected. We take a look at this in Circuit Edit. We go to MDP1. All of those circuits are actually feeders connecting to other panels, so you actually can't change anything in Circuit Edit. To change these, you have to go to Panel Edit. And we can, again, set this at the family or the instance level. So let's go take a look at what options we have at the family level, and then we can take a look at what we can do at the instance level. I will take this panel here, this LP1. We'll run Edit Family in Revit. Then we will run our Family Edit command. We're going to change this device type from Branch Circuit Device Other, which is our generic piece of electrical equipment, to Distribution Equipment Panel. So we treat panels and transformers and other a little bit differently. This one's a panel, so we're choosing panel for the type. Then we have these three options here. The description in the upstream panel. It can either be the equipment name, which is our default. It can be a custom specific value if you want to type something in. You can also base it on a parameter again. So if you have a parameter, shared parameter in your family that has the description you want to use, you can have that set in our software to match our upstream description in the circuit. We'll leave that at equipment name. We also have two options for a prefix and a suffix. So right now it's going to be just the name of the panel. If we wanted to add panel as an option at the beginning, we could do panel there. Then we will load this into our project. When we make that change, it doesn't update immediately until we run the calculate. So I'm going to go ahead and run the calculate right now so that it shows everywhere that that should be reflected. Now, if I run circuit edit, that LP1 is being fed from MDP1. So we can see here that that description has panel LP1 now. So it has that prefix that we added in the family. We also can change the description on the panel itself. If I select LP1, go to panel edit, we have the description in upstream panel here. It can either be the default value, which is going to be pulled from the family. It can be based upon a parameter again. So at each instance, you can base it on a specific parameter, or it can be custom if we want to type something in and override what that value is. So I can come in here, select custom, and it's giving us that default value of panel LP1, and then we can override it. Put an E in there. This is an existing panel, something like that. So you can do that, override it at the specific panel level. For branch circuits, we have the option to include the room name in the circuit description as well. That is an option that you can set at the project level. So for circuit descriptions, we have two options really. One, whether you're using our circuit descriptions or Revits, and if you're using ours, whether you include the room names or not. So right now this is set to yes. You can also set it to no, depending on what you prefer for your projects. We'll leave that on yes. We take a look at our circuit edit command. We take a look at this circuit here. You can see it's a lighting circuit, and then we list the rooms that that circuit is in. You can also turn this off on a per circuit basis. So you have one setting at the panel level, and then you have another setting at the circuit level that you can override it. So we could turn it off for that specific circuit, set it to no. It'll remove the rooms from that one specific circuit. So that's the option that we have for including that. The room name that we're going to be displaying is pulled from the Revit model of the devices that are in the room. To show the locations of your devices, you can do that with a schedule. So I'm going to create an electrical fixture schedule, and we'll put in the description. And then we can choose the room, and we can either choose the room name, and I'll put that in here. And then you also have your spaces. And I believe this is going to have a name as well. We'll show our space name. And this will show us all of our equipment and the room and the space that they're in. This is what our software is going to pull for the room name for your circuit description. If this is blank, then Revit doesn't know what room or space it's in, and then our software won't know either. So this is how you can check to see if you have things defined properly for ElectroBIM to be able to see the room and space that it's in. We are going to pull the room name or the room space from the Revit model. It means that you have to have that room name or that room space in Revit. So this project here, all of our electrical stuff and our architectural stuff is in the same model. So we have both the space and the room created in this model. That's probably not how it's going to be set up as an electrical engineer. You are probably linking in the architect's model. In that case, you actually have to go through an extra step to get the spaces so that we can pull that information. I'm going to demonstrate that over here. I have this linked architectural model, and I've put in a single panel and a single receptacle. We are currently using our circuit descriptions. We're including the room names. We're in this room. If we run the circuit edit, you'll see that it's not actually displaying the room name. That's because it's a linked model, and we actually can't see through the link to get those room names or space names. You need to create the spaces in your model so that the electrical model can see them. There's a couple steps to make that happen. The first thing you need to do is select the linked model, select edit type, and make sure that room bounding is checked. Then you can go to analyze and go to space. And here you can create spaces one at a time for each of your rooms. And it'll kind of, you can see how it's highlighting the different spaces you can create. And you can create them one at a time. If you have a small building, that might work. If you've got a big building, that's going to take a really long time. So we have place spaces automatically as a command. And by we, I really mean Revit. Revit has a place spaces. What I'm showing you here, this is all Revit functionality. This is not ElectroBIM. So we'll run the Revit place spaces automatically, and it will load up all of the spaces on this level for us. And if we select this space, the name is space and the number is 34, which does not match that room name and number being pulled from the architectural model. So what we can do is we can also go to analyze again and go to space naming. And now we can automatically load the room names into the space names. There's a couple options here. We'll leave it at names and numbers, do it for all the levels. And now that name and number matches that room name and number. So now that we have a space with the right room name and the right room number, I select our circuit edit command in ElectroBIM, and we can see that and we can read it in ElectroBIM. So if you are not seeing your room names, make sure that you have spaces in your electrical model. And if you don't have those spaces, that's how you can pull them from the linked architectural model.